So the Jimmy Butler trade rumors are heating up. The Heat just suspended Jimmy Butler for 2 more games, and honestly, it seems like a Jimmy Butler trade is about to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if a trade happens before this 2-game suspension ends. If it doesn't, one would think it's coming fairly soon because the NBA trade deadline is on February 6th. So in this one, I want to talk about the Jimmy Butler stuff and how the Toronto Raptors can enter the sweepstakes and potentially get involved in a deal. Of course, it's going to be difficult for Jimmy Butler's preferred destination, the Suns, to make a deal for Butler unless other teams get involved, and this becomes a 4, even 5-team trade. So the Raptors could actually end up swiping in, and maybe they are a huge catalyst in getting a blockbuster deal done before the February 6th trade deadline. So I'm going to talk about that in today's video, guys. Do me a solid, drop a like on the video and sub to the channel for more videos just like this. So Butler, he's made it clear he doesn't want to play for the Heat anymore. He strongly prefers to land with the Suns, and the Suns, they got busy on Tuesday night and they traded their lone tradable first-round pick in 2031 to the Jazz and received 3 likely late first-round picks in 2025, 2027, and 2029. Now, why is this significant? Because the move now gives the Suns more assets and first-round picks to include in any potential trade. So by Phoenix doing that move, it suggests they got something big on the horizon. And a Suns trade for Butler does remain difficult because the only way the Suns can acquire Butler is by trading Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, or Bradley Beal. And of course, the Suns wouldn't trade Durant or Booker in this scenario, so it would have to be Beal. However, Beal holds a no-trade clause, which gives him full control over a deal, which makes this even more difficult. However, it's been rumored that Beal is open to waiving his no-trade clause to join the Milwaukee Bucks. So this is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. But then enter the Toronto Raptors. They are one team reportedly interested in helping facilitate a Butler deal, as Doug Smith of the Toronto Star reported. The Raptors have $42 million in expiring salaries this year, which includes Bruce Brown's $23 million expiring contract. And that is the big thing here because we know about the Raptors trade candidates. You know, Bruce Brown's at the top of that list. You got Kelly Olynyk, who's coming off a nice game along with Brown. You got Boucher. You even have Davion Mitchell. You look at Brown and Boucher and even Mitchell, those are expiring deals. And the biggest thing with Brown, or the most difficult part about moving Brown, was that he's making that $23 million. So it's hard to find a trade partner one-on-one who's going to take on that salary and then, give the Raptors their desired pick. But in a deal like this, Brown's $23 million is deemed valuable, and then the Raptors can be a team that benefits from executing this larger 4 or 5-team deal because they would get paid in draft compensation. So basically, the Raptors, they got valuable trade chips in this big deal, and the biggest one is Bruce Brown. So Clutch Points, Brett Siegel, he put out a 4-team hypothetical deal that does involve the Raptors, and it could look something like this. The Suns receive Jimmy Butler, the Heat receive Bruce Brown and Chris Middleton, the Bucks receive Bradley Beal and Kevin Love, and the Raptors would receive Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. Now, the deal doesn't account for any draft compensation, but it's very likely to be headed the Raptors' way and Miami's way. So you look at this deal, I mean, it's still far-fetched and still complicated because you look at the 4-team trade, the math still doesn't work. So the deal would probably need a 5th team to smooth out the salary matching all across. And then another question is, would the Bucks even want to do this deal? I really don't see the value in this deal for the Bucks, getting Bradley Beal and losing Chris Middleton, who's been such a big part of what they've been accomplishing over the years. For the Raptors, I mean, you get Connaughton and Portis, obviously, to match salary. The big thing for the Raptors in this deal would be the draft compensation. So again, like in this hypothetical, draft compensation wasn't talked about. But you look at Bobby Portis, it would be a little interesting because he is 29 years old, so he's actually older than Brown, and he's got a player option after this season. So he's not, a contract that comes off the books. And then the other player in this, you got Pat Connaughton. When looking at his contract, he's got a player option as well. So Connaughton's player option is $9 million, and then you look at Bobby Portis's player option, it's 13 million, 13, close to 13.5 million. So though that's not the ideal part if you're the Raptors, because they're going to exercise their player options, especially Portis at that age. So then the Raptors would be stuck with that long-term salary. But again, it comes down to draft compensation. And that's basically what it would be for the Raptors. Like, if the Raptors are catalysts of a bigger deal, you're not necessarily looking at the players they're getting back in a deal like this. You're more so interested about the draft compensation, the draft capital that they would receive in a deal like this. And the fact that Doug Smith, reported that the Raptors could be interested in being the catalyst. They do have those expiring deals that are valuable in a deal like this. It's interesting. I do think there's a strong chance that if a Jimmy Butler trade goes down, that the Toronto Raptors could get involved, because it's looking like if a Butler deal does happen, it's going to be one giant trade. There's going to be multiple teams involved. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces. And that's if the Phoenix Suns are the ones that do end up with Butler. And of course, that's been something that Butler has hinted time and time again of the team that he wants to join. So this is one big saga. But I mean, if you're the Raptors, look, it's been reported by Jake Fisher that they are motivated to move Brown. And then I read something in that same report by Fisher that if they are unable to get a deal done for Brown, then you run into buyout options. And I think that would be a very bad end result for this Raptors team if they end up just buying out Brown and they get nothing for him. The other option is that they hold on to Brown for the summer and then you explore sign and trade options, but you don't want to run the risk of losing Brown for nothing. So I think the Raptors, if they have an opportunity here where they can get paid for their trade involvement of getting a trade to go down in draft compensation, they absolutely have to do that. So that's going to be the biggest thing here. What happens with the Butler deal? Are the Raptors going to get involved? What happens with Bruce Brown? And then some other trade candidates, Boucher, Olynyk, Mitchell. Basically, who's going to still be left on this Raptors team when looking at the some of the veterans on this roster after the trade deadline? Because I know the Raptors have won 3 of their last 4, but it's clear that this team, they're in a position to bottom out, continuing to bottom out, play for the draft lottery, and they're going to give a whole ton of playing time to their younger players, it seems, to close out the season, especially after the Raptors offload some of these pieces that I just mentioned, if they offload some of these pieces I just mentioned at the deadline. So I think it's going to be an interesting deadline. I think the Raptors is definitely going to be not as crazy as last season's, but the Raptors could end up being a major player at this season's trade deadline, especially when it comes to this Jimmy Butler trade. So guys, let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the hypothetical trade, or do you have another one that doesn't need to be tinkered with? Because like I said, the one that I mentioned that Brett Siegel proposed, it definitely needs a lot of tinkering, because if you do that trade at value, it doesn't work math-wise. So let me know if you have another trade idea down below. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's it for me. It's Luke signing off. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all again in the next one.